think I fixed it. Now I'm gonna find a fucking book because nobody's gonna fucking talk to me. My chicks are even being quiet for you guys. Shake it, babe, shake it. Ooh. Shake it, baby. A whole lot of shaking going on. Not. Jerry Lee Lewis. Oh, this print's even fucking smaller. Dude, I am not going to put my glasses on for this shit. Not doing it. I'm not putting my glasses on. I don't feel like putting my glasses on. Does anybody have any questions yet? Meow Mix wet cat food. The fuck? That's alright. Well, if nobody has any questions and I need to stay awake till 4 a.m., I guess I'm going to read a little bit. From Hunter Yoder's book. One of them. If I can fucking see it. We got better luck with this one because the print's a little bigger. However, I think more light would be good. That's a little better. Heard that. What is that sound? that was part of the song. That was weird. I hear it now. Step on my blue suede shoes. All right. The subject of witchcraft is a sensational one in any civilized culture, but among the Pennsylvania Dutch, it is commonplace and unchallenged, and that is so interwoven in the culture that one is prone to believe that hexery, witchcraft, by the way, if y'all don't know, hex, the word hex, is German for witch. Hex means witch. Hexery means witchcraft in German. Pennsylvania Dutch. Alright, where was I? One is prone to believe that hexery, witchcraft, is a normal phenomenon amongst the Pennsylvania Dutch. In almost every phase of Dutch folk ways, there is recorded the influence of this ancient art, from incantations to exorcise a witch from a butter churn, to the more common tick love potion. Tick love potion? I don't have my glasses on. I believe that says tick. Undoubtedly, the religious nature of the Pennsylvania Dutch has sustained these beliefs up to the present day with more than amongst any other people in Northern America. I gotta vape off camera, they'll flag me. One folk practice most confused with hexery, witchcraft, is braucherei, or powwowing. The art of powwowing is a form of faith healing, practiced popularly by laymen in the culture who derive their power from God. Though most powwowing is performed for domestic ills, occasionally a powwow doctor will break the spell over a verhexed, a bewitched person. The hex, remember that means witch, can be a man or a woman who casts a spell. It is usually a neighbor in the community who wishes to make trouble for another neighbor for a variety of reasons. Within the culture, there are various occult books which constitute a body of knowledge for those wishing to practice the art. One such book is the infamous 6th and 7th books of Moses. Yes, we'll use those quite a bit in powwow braucherei. Y'all can ask questions any fucking time. I'm just passing time because I gotta stay up till 4 a.m. So powerful are these books that the mere possession of them will bring the owner good fortune. The most circulated book in the field is John George Homan's Long Lost Friend, printed in Reading in early 1820. Yeah, that's 18, not 16. Next in popularity to this volume is the 3-volume books of Albertus Magnus, the Egyptian Secrets, printed in Allentown, Pennsylvania in 1869. As witchcraft is not one of the more pleasant subjects, And since much of it is kept secret, it is not very frequent that one encounters any reference to hexery in a conversation. People who wish to learn the occult must acquire the confidence of their informant before even thinking about casually inquiring about it. Although there is no historical truth to the belief that the colorful hex signs actually ward off evil, the individual interested in the occult practice will find that the practice is real and far more exciting than these simple decorations. I wonder if my other book has big print like this, because I don't feel like putting my fucking glasses on. As a young man, I was more than amazed when I learned my uncle and aunt had this dreaded 6th and 7th books of Moses, and that she was able to do more than Brodessa. In later life, after I became familiar with my aunt's neighbors, I was fortunate to learn of my aunt's practice of hexery. My aunt lived in South Kunsstown, in a place called Rupert's Eck, which means Rupert's Corner, by the way. These forested hills contained a one-room schoolhouse and a few one-horse farms. One of the first questions ever asked me about my aunt, who at the time was in her 70s, was if I ever saw her wood stove plates pop. After I replied no, the inquiring neighbor told me that if you visited too long with Anne, she would make the iron plates on the stove pop, high in the air. Although I never witnessed the plates popping, I did notice that Annie's stove was of a very peculiar type. First of all, the stove, easily 100 years old, had its firebox on the opposite side from all other stoves of its kind. Secondly, behind the cast iron flue, which supported the shelf in the rear of the stove, were 2 arched dragons, quite unusual. I don't like these commercials. Why commercials? That's distracting. I have to confess that my aunt was quite mysterious, even to me. She was not like my other aunts. She was suspicious and crafty. I thought her unpleasantness may have come from her back injury, when she either fell or was pushed into a fire at an apple butter boiling event early in life. Despite her injury, she could walk with the aid of a stick and would huckster her garden crops on foot. One of her former customers told me that old Annie put a spell on her infant, that she had to go to a hex doctor to break it. Remember, hex means witch. The nature of the spell was that the child would not eat, and death certainly would result. Doc, the local hex doctor, told the woman that Annie was the hex, and that if she wished to break the spell, she was to make a path of salt around her house. Later, the mother, having performed this simple task, waited anxiously one Saturday morning when it was time for Annie to call with her produce. In the distance, the mother saw Annie as she approached the house on foot. However, as soon as she reached the spot where the circle of salt crossed the path, without any ado, Annie turned around and never returned again. The following day, the child regained her appetite. Probably the most unusual episode was one that was related to me by old Uniday, who lived across from Annie. It seemed that this child also would not eat, and upon consulting the same hex doctor, he learned that Annie had been verhexed. The wise doctor told Uni that upon returning home, he was to take the next diaper, which the baby messed in, and wrap it up and hide it under a crock in the attic. After doing this, the doc cautioned them that the witch will come and see you and will wish to borrow something. Do not lend her anything. That night, Uni attended to the instructions, and my Aunt Annie came to call. As she approached Uni at her house, she said, "I have a terrible taste in my mouth. Will you lend me some bread?" To which Uni replied no, and the next day the infant was well. By the way, this is the section called Recollections of Witchcraft in the Oley Hills in Pennsylvania. There was a hex doctor at Rupert's Corner, that specialized in breaking spells, and I doubt if he engaged in powwowing. In fact, the old-timer told me that he did not trust seeing the doc. The old gent believed that the doc did not destroy the spells, but passed them on to other innocent people he came in contact with, and thus created more patients for himself. Louis A. told me that at one time a farmer had a cow which would not go to her newly born calf. Doc, who happened to be on the scene, offered his services, and in a short while charmed the cow to walk by his side and led her without any grip over to her calf. Since my uncle and aunt never had children, I often wondered if he had married her under some strange spell. Even when my aunt was single, she was still known to be peculiar. But then again, my uncle was probably just peculiar as my aunt, for he was so lazy they literally lived from one day to the next. After the death of my aunt in 1960, I helped my uncle make a sale. Like most curious people, I had my eyes open for a glimpse of their copy of the 6th and 7th books of Moses. Instead of the book, what I found hidden in the attic was 2 small envelopes marked 1912 used. Upon investigation, I found enclosed in each envelope a dried-up turtle dove tongue. Having a copy of Magnus's Egyptian Secrets at hand, I discovered a love potion which called for the user to kiss his intended with a turtle dove tongue in his mouth. When I questioned my uncle, he shrugged the incident off with his usual stubbornness. Later, I confronted him outright and asked to see his copy of the 6th and 7th books of Moses. He laughed and took me upstairs to his bedroom. In a special drawer chest where he kept his most treasured possessions was the dreaded books, as well as one by Albertus Magnus. I must admit I was disappointed, for the red cloth-bound books did not appear to be older than about 60 years, and they were written in English, not Deutsch. Knowing that my uncle read English very poorly, and that most Pennsylvania Dutch read German, I did not consider that the books were used by him much at all. Any questions yet? 12:39. While assisting my uncle further with preparations for the sale, I discovered bags of Devil's Dreck nailed over the cow stable. This substance, known as asafetta, was used to ward off evil spirits. Quite often, bags of mercury were also used for the same purpose. Most mysterious of all the finds that day, was a homemade muslin bra concealed in a wooden box in the hayloft. My aunt, typical for her vintage, always kept money in her bosom, and when I discovered paper sewn into the bra, I cut it open. Inside was quite a lengthy German verse from the Bible, which was probably used to protect her when she traveled on foot. On the front of the garment was 3 crosses. I'm literally reading a book and they're restricting my life. I recalled that my aunt was always cautious to protect herself while on a journey, even in the local store. One time, a neighbor volunteered to give her a buggy ride home from the store. She accepted, crawled up into the seat, and pulled out a revolver, exclaiming that she wanted a ride only. Alrighty, Auntie. The death of Aunt Annie was surrounded by mystery, for thieves supposedly entered their house and beat both of them for money. The thieves were never caught, but Annie's health began to fall quickly within the next few weeks. A distant relative offered to take Annie into care and care for her while she was ailing. It became evident soon that Annie was dying, and on the night of her death, she beckoned anyone to come by her side, for she had something important to say. Fearing that she wished to pass on her powers to one of them, her bedroom door was closed, and she died in solitude. Just 2 years ago, I bade call to assist my 84-year-old uncle to clean up his house, for in his old age he was unable to do so. Being given access to find some papers from his favorite chest, I stumbled across a rare old copy of Homan's long-lost friend. This copy was in German, and according to the papers tucked inside, it had been used. Not wishing to upset my elderly uncle, I did not let him know that I knew he had an original copy. While attempting to clean his cluttered up kitchen, one of my students offered to assist me. They discovered a star of the Jewish type chalked on the underside of my uncle's favorite kitchen chair. This symbol matched in kind with others found in the 6th and 7th books of Moses. My uncle had a reputation for being a crack shot and did a great deal of hunting when I'm hearing some weird things. As soon as I start reading again, I'm going to hear it again. My uncle had a reputation for being a crack shot and did a great deal of hunting when he was younger. This fact became most interesting when I discovered a brass bullet shell with his hunting equipment. In the shell was a rolled piece of paper which contained a talisman charm to fire a bullet that would hit any target it was aimed at. This is a well-known trick in powwow. guess nobody's going to have any questions. I would really rather be helping people and answering questions. But right now, I'm just trying to stay awake till 4 a.m. So I'm going to sit on here and read a fucking book until somebody asks some fucking questions. I'd like to go get my other book, but I have a feeling the print is probably a lot smaller than this, and I'm not putting my glasses on. In defense of my apparent eccentric uncle's ways, I must state that he was not alone in the corner of Berks County. Old L.A. told me that some years ago, some of the boys around Locksville decided to cast a bullet to kill anyone, anywhere, at any time. This old hex formula, followed by the old boys, called for the casting of a bullet at the intersection where a corpse had been driven in both directions. The place which was chosen was the intersection of Locksville at the appointed time of midnight and on a full moon. The bullet was to be silver, one east, one cast from a silver dollar. At the intersection, the boys were to make a large ring out of green holler hecka, elder twigs, which was to be set afire. Inside the ring, the silver bullet was to be placed and shot through a human skull. Okay. All preparation attended to, the onlookers on the porch of the village store watched while the two of the boys set out to unalive the Kaiser of Germany. They were doing a spell to Hitler. That's pretty fucking cool. Okay. I've never read this entire book, so this is interesting. This was during the period of World War I. One of the boys became scared and ran out of the circle, but the other fired the silver bullet. A clasp of thunder was heard from the direction of New Jerusalem as though a landslide had occurred. In the next instant, the great dismay of the sole boy in the circle, a darkened image began walking towards the circle with its hand outstretched, as though for a handshake. The boy quickly escaped the circle, and the image disappeared. This is actually very interesting. I'm trying to see why the fuck I got a restriction. Your live contains themes that some may find uncomfortable and has been restricted. Reason? Trading or using tobacco? No, I have been vaping off. The freaking screen. What the hell, TikTok? Fuck you. I am so sick of this app and shadow banning me. How the fuck do they know I'm vaping? One day, as I sat down in the Fredericksville Hotel, just a mile or so away from Rupert's Corner, an old-timer who knew I collected hex books quickly moved away. Deciding to have fun with him, I got up and again moved alongside of him. Quite uneasy, the old gent mumbled under his breath, "Lek mich I'm Orkish," 3 times. As I was bewildered, the bartender explained in private that if you fear a person is a hex, to protect yourself, you say, "Kiss my ass" in German. Oh, I love my people. On my paternal side of the family, my father finally confided in me The hexery, which is most sundry, but nevertheless most typical. It seems that my paternal grandmother was verhexed by a neighbor while living in Pottstown. After consulting a powwow doctor in the area, she was instructed to take 9 new needles and place them in a pot of her urine, which was to be boiled on top of the stove. Y'all think witchcraft is glamorous and glitter and pretty stuff. Y'all keep thinking that. That's why your shit don't work. This she did, and the following morning, when she passed through an alleyway which connected to the front of the ram house to the backyard, she found a black snake. She unalived the snake, and on the morning of the 3rd day, the suspected neighbor woman was found unalived. My grandmother lived to a ripe old age. Looks like they might have taken my restriction off. Not a single question. Okay, I will continue reading then. I got 3 more hours to stay awake. In one humorous episode, my namesake informed me of his mother being verhexed when she lived in Allentown. Here again, another powwow doctor instructed that needles and urine be boiled. However, the mother, attempting to keep the process a secret, placed a corked bottle of urine on the oven. After several hours, the bottle blew up and the stove fell apart. The family had a good laugh, bought a new stove, and everything turned out well. Oh, shit. Throughout Dutch country, the people who have the specialized knowledge of hexery are the wise grandmothers. In a case that occurred in the Kunsttown area several years ago, a husband with a child who lost his wife made an arrangement with a woman with a child and no husband. Living together, the circumstances were ideal until one day the woman and her child left. The man asked the daughter's grandmother to take care of her while he worked. The wise grandmother asked the daughter if she wanted the woman and her child to come back. The girl lamented yes, and so the grandmother instructed the girl to set plates on the dinner table for the missing parties. Then, as though the grandmother and the girl sat down to eat lunch, the daughter was told to converse with the missing people just as though they were there. The following day, the woman and the child returned to the delight of the granddaughter. This is a thing we even do. Wow. I've never read this entire book. We still do that. We do that for our dead, for our ancestors, especially on holidays. And we'll set extra, if there's an empty chair, we'll set an extra plate for somebody. And I've been telling people this for years. If you want to work with your ancestors, literally sit down at a table, make 2 cups of coffee or tea or whatever the person you want to connect with drank. Make a cup for you and a cup for them, and sit down and have a conversation like they are sitting right there in front of you. And believe me, they will come. I like this book more now that I'm actually reading most of it. Later, the woman again left the man. and again the grandmother was called. This time, grandmother said to the girl, "We will get them back for good." The daughter again eagerly set the table for the missing parties, but this time the grandmother turned to the walk-in fireplace and called up the chimney 3 times the name of the woman. The next morning, the father received word that the woman had suffered a slight heart attack and wished to come back home to the man for good. I don't know how pleasant that was, but it worked. This is the second time they've played this song in an hour. As a teacher of high school sociology and psychology, I became intrigued with the local practice of hexery in my corner of Berks County, and have continued this hobby over the years. To the average person, such accounts of witchcraft appear to be absurd and coincidental. However, collecting these accounts over the past 15 years, I find that they are not isolated ideas, but are part of a pattern. For instance, in many cases of witchcraft, when the victim breaks the spell, the witch invariably calls upon the family to borrow something. In other instances, the witch may not borrow something, but wish to give the victims a gift. In either case, if you accept the gift or you lend something, it will have a greater hold on you. A universal belief in Dutch country is that witches cast spells on people by obtaining items that belong to the victims. Thus, the Dutch country, there is a belief that one does not give anything away for free. The practice is to charge a nominal price for the article, perhaps as little as a penny, and therefore the item was sold, and you are no longer the owner. We have a big tradition, Pennsylvania Dutch people, of selling our woes. So some of our tricks are like, to get rid of warts, one trick is to like cut a potato in half and you rub the warts on the, potato. You rub the potato on the warts. And then you put the potato in a brown paper sack with some pennies and take it to the crossroads. And whoever picks that bag up is going to get your warts. But you sold them. They bought them from you because there's money in the bag. We do that also with infestations. If you have an infestation of any kind, if you have mice, rats, bugs, whatever, you take 3 of whatever you're infested with, put them in a brown paper sack with some pennies, and again, leave them at the crossroads, and whoever picks that bag up bought your infestation. We do this a lot in my culture. And needless to say, don't ever pick up weird objects laying in the fucking road. Another feature of spell breaking is that you always avenge the witch. If your butter will not churn because it was bewitched, you plunge a red-hot poker into it. Soon after doing this, you will find that the suspected witch has been badly burned. It is not uncommon at all that in avenging the hex, she is unalived when the spell is broken. Does anybody have any questions yet? If y'all are not familiar with me, I'm Unu Midnight. I'm Pennsylvania Dutch. I'm a Braucher and a powwower, a hexmeister, whatever you want to call them, a witch, whatever. So I am reading accounts of witchcraft from my culture Pennsylvania Dutch, because nobody has any fucking questions, and I need to stay awake till 4 a.m. Does anybody have any questions? I don't get to do lives very often. You should really ask your questions. The most common method to test for a witch is to observe the restlessness of animals. If a witch is around, the horses cannot stay tied. Cattle becomes very uneasy in the stable where evil spirits are present. The test for a witch under this circumstance is to place a broom in your oven when a suspected witch comes to call. As the broom becomes hot, the witch will become very restless and wish to leave. One of my paternal aunts was given a black belt to wear by a powwow doctor, and when she was in the presence of the hex, the belt would tighten on its own. That's a new one. I always was told if you think someone's a witch, you lay the broom across your doorway, because she can't step over. They can't step over a broom that was purposely laid down with intent across the doorway. They can't walk over it. That's how you find out if they're a witch. At one time in Dutch country, it was common practice for young children to wear bags of de Drek around their necks, that's asofeta, to protect them from all manner of evil and sickness. This practice was no different from that of using this substance in the cow stable to protect the cattle. Yeah, asofeta. My husband actually told me when he was a boy, and he was raised in the Midwest, but when he was a boy, his grandmother gave him a medicine ball. I don't know if you guys know what that is, but it's like a silver ball with like holes in it that you can open it up and put stuff in it. She had given him a medicine ball to wear, and I know it had asofeta in it because he told me it smelled so bad that like nobody wanted to play with him at school or like be his friend because it stunk so bad. I'm like, I know that was asofeta around your fucking neck. Alright, we're moving on to the chapter called Strange Experiences. Excerpt from the strangest prayers are painted. All of the hex signs including in this book, unless they are purely geometric, are ones determined by the inheritance of geometry and number. They are personal. Again, I must emphasize that hex is usually a creative art. Hex needs not copy slavishly the work of any other hex. He draws ideas from it and makes it his own by selection of motifs, by subordination through placement of size of components. If no standardized design exists to express an idea, like an affirmation or a prayer, he racks his subconscious for suggestion, as I did when I was faced with the challenge of finding a design to express the hex belief in reincarnation, and settled upon the Triskelion of fishes, which you'll find printed over in Chapter 1. Fish are symbols of spirit. Their habitat is water, also a symbol of spirit. They live in the ocean, which is a symbol of eternity. And 3 is the number of spirit. So my subconscious related these observances to the fact that the head is the symbol of consciousness and gave one head 3 bodies to symbolize the certainty that I have that the spirit moves in the ocean of eternity has a succession of different bodies. Okay. But the consciousness remains intact. And its I, the awareness, is that of all its bodies and the sum of all its experience. I think I remembered this design from my Croatian time before the Zayeda. I used to embroider the stylized ocean waves on borders of my clomadides. And the whirling Triskelion is an Eastern Mediterranean motif still in use as the heraldic symbol of the island of Sicily. It refers to the progressive motion and the geometry of rhythm, to balance not static but dynamic. A very good symbol for life, in my opinion. I use it as my own symbol of total identity. Any questions yet? Y'all suck. What's that? Huh. Rank up on Popular Live. Add a team name to call your members. TikTok's fucking weird. Okay. A hex drawing may be of any shape, but a hex sign is always circular. This in itself is symbolic, for as a hex conceives God as present throughout the universe and manifested in every atom of which it is comprised, it rejects out of hand any anthropomorphic concept that presumes to represent him. In seeking a sign to represent completeness and all-inclusiveness, the hex recognizes the only perfect wholeness without beginning or end is the geometric circle. So when he sets the point of his compass to the surface, he says silently, "This is I, my conscience is the radius." And as he draws the circle, he says, "This is God," and he surrounds me. The design that I make in the bounds of my consciousness must be laid out with reference to him. These are Belschnickel stories. I might come on and read those before or around Christmas. This one's called A Witch's Ring. On green before his house there was a circle where no grass grew, and it was solemnly affirmed that the witches danced there at Wasburgis. It is true that the Zenner said that the circle had been made by the hoofs of his old horse while turning the cider mill. But who would believe such a simple explanation? Did not Hans and Jost Yoder see the witches dancing around the circle when he returned late at night from the raising of the Distelfink's barn? This one's called A Novel Weapon. He was about to despair when he suddenly remembered the settling hammer which lay upon the beam above his head. The head of a hammer of this kind, as all our readers are probably aware, is brought to a sharp point for the purpose of making holes in wood, in which the nails then can be driven with greater facility. Seizing the hammer, Zenner sprang suddenly upon his enemies, and striking right and left, pierced their skulls so easily as though they had been made of wood. Though greatly surprised at this novel mode of fighting, defended themselves bravely, but by using all his gigantic strength, he was at last enabled to triumph over his 6 assailants, all of whom fell before the death-dealing strokes of his terrible hammer. Okay. I love how mermaids are universal. We even have them in Pennsylvania Dutch culture. Okay, let's see. That one's a little long, but fuck it, because nobody has any fucking questions apparently. This one's called Here's One Tale from Germany. In Baden there is a forest named Stollenwad, and in this forest, atop Stollenberg Mountain, are the ruins of an old castle, Stauffenberg, and the palace stands nearby. In this palace there once lived a magistrate's son who took great pleasure in capturing birds. One day he went into the woods to trap titmice. That's a kind of bird, if you all know, titmice. There he heard a beautiful voice descending from the Stollenberg mountain. Following it, he saw the most lovely image of a woman who called out to him, "Redeem me, redeem me. Just kiss me 3 times 3. "Who are you then?" called the youth. And the specter said, Melusina is my name, the daughter of the heavenly song. Early in this 9th hour, fearlessly kiss my mouth with my cheeks, then I shall be redeemed, and be with you, my beloved bridegroom. Looking at the miraculous being more closely, the youth saw that Melusina had a marvelously beautiful face, blue eyes, and blonde hair. Her upper body, too, was wonderfully proportioned, but not her hands and feet. Her hands had no fingers, resembling instead small open bags, and she had no feet at all, but rather a snake's body. Nonetheless, the youth fearlessly gave the specter the first 3 kisses. She expressed joy in this, like the maiden in the heathen's cave with her first kiss, and then she disappeared. The next morning, the lover returned and followed the seductively sweet song that sounded towards him. Finding her, he saw that she now had wings. Her snake's body was speckled green and ended with a dragon's tail. But Melusina's eyes and face emanated such beauty, and her mouth was so seductive that he was overcome by desire, and he again gave her 3 kisses. She quivered with desire, flapping her wings about his head. That night the youth could scarcely close his eyes. All his thoughts were on the glowing, beautiful figure. Before daybreak, he went into the woods and followed the sweet, songful voice. But alas, where was the lovely angel face? It was transformed and looked just like the maiden on the toad chair. For Melusina now had a toad head, and the lover was surprised to kiss it as though nothing had happened. But instead, he turned his heels and ran as fast as he could. Behind him, he heard the rushing sound and cries of anguish. He never again went to Stallenberg Mountain. On the contrary, he became engaged to a girl who, although not as magically beautiful as Melusina, nonetheless did not have a toad's head on a snake's body. Alrighty. The wedding feast at Stauffenberg's palace was ready, and everyone was celebrating, when a small crack opened in the ceiling. A dew-like drop fell onto a serving dish, but no one saw it, and anyone who took a bite onto which the drop had fallen fell down unalive. And from above a small snake's tail emerged through the crack in the ceiling. And that was the end of the wedding celebration. On another occasion, Melusina appeared to a shepherd girl. At length, she led the girl into Stallenberg Mountain, showing her underground treasures. She told the shepherd girl that they would be hers if she could bring about her disenchantment. The girl was unable to keep this secret and told a priest, who threatened her with church sanctions if she continued to commune with this specter. This silenced the shepherd's girl, and the disenchantment was never fulfilled. A double fir tree growing from a single root still stands near the palace, and they call it the 12 Stones. It is called the Melusina tree. In keeping with this legend, the name Melusina refers not only to water spirits, but to mountain and forest spirits as well. I'm getting real irritated with this fucking app. Did anybody have any questions yet? I got about 2.5 hours. I still gotta stay awake. Oh, we have more Belschnickel. I'm gonna have to read these around Christmas. I'm looking for a good chapter. There's another mermaid. Another mermaid hex. This is a different book. Okay, this is good. Has anybody ever heard of Mountain Mary? Mountain Mary was pretty famous, probably one of the most famous powwow or brotcher healers in Pennsylvania Dutch culture from where I'm from. Everybody knows about Mountain Mary. So I will tell you about Mountain Mary. Mountain Mary is an enduring Pennsylvania Dutch legend and an elusive historical person. As legend, it has grown from a cryptic notice in the 1790 census of the United States to an effusive flood of words that gush forth from regional historians. Her legend has so many formulations, including Diebergmaria. Not all versions of the legends agree. Details vary. An honest historian liberated from the positiveness of chains him to the facts that there actually were, and knows that legends are history too, in a sense that they project the inner meaning of events. Okay. It is said that Anna Maria Jung was born near Frankfurt, Germany, in or about 1749. She is said to have migrated to Pennsylvania, arriving sometime between 1764 and 1773. The date is uncertain. Okay. The young family, when first arrived in Pennsylvania, may have settled near Germantown, but this is far from certain. The bit of precise information that we have about a person like Mountain Mary, and a tantalizing bit it is. It comes from the first census of the United States taken in 1790, listing the heads of families in East District, Berks County, and the enumerator recorded Mary the Ebbs, who was living with two other females, probably her sisters, Anna and Maria. Later, to Mary citizens of Oley, this cryptic statement of only 3 words confirms that there was a Mountain Mary. But what does Abbes mean? Was Mary the head of the female religious establishment, or was this a personal designation? Why was she not simply listed by her family name, rather than by this European stereotype? So already around 1790, just a few years after her arrival in Oley, Mary was already a historical figure around whom a legend was growing. The second bit of precise information that we have is the will of Anna Marie Young. On the date of March 13th, 1813, a person who signed herself as Anna Marie Young, as in the feminine ending of the word, wrote a will which was recorded in Will Book D, page 343 of Berks County. From this significant document, we may garner some interesting deductions, evidence that both confirms the materials in the legends. First, and perhaps most important, we know that Mary was a historical figure, that the person listed in the 1790 census was more than a creation of imagination. Mary listed herself as a single person. Mary bequeathed to her niece, Maria, a not inconsiderable sum of money, and she owned a cabin with over 40 acres of land, and she was not impoverished. Mary mentions books and manuscripts. She was a scholarly recluse, but did she write? If Mountain Mary was an author, what treasures her works would be. She mentions her friends Daniel Yoder, one-time county commissioner of Berks, who was an affluent citizen of Oley, and Thomas Lee of an old Quaker family in Valley 4. Mary was solitary. She named her 2 deceased sisters, Anna Schneider and mother of Maria Elizabeth, wife of John Schneider, in her will. Okay. Any questions yet? Mary Young was indeed a historical person. We still have more evidence. In the year 1819, just before Mary's death, Benjamin Hollinshead visited Oley, properly fortified with letters of introduction, to seek information about Mountain Mary. He was accompanied by Dr. Jesse Thompson. The party set out in July. This was one of the last visits by reporting travelers. Hollins wrote, "After riding a few miles along the valley, we began to ascend the mountain. On reaching the summit and passing through the woods, we came to an enclosure on the opposite side, of which was situated a humble log cabin of Mountain Mary. Fastening our horses to the fences, we lowered the bars, and walking slowly over the greensward, were met by a hermitess at the threshold." Hermitess. I guess that's a female hermit. "She received us kindly, and after an interchange of inquiries on part of her and our friends, she commenced speaking in a religious strain, informing us through a lady in our party who acted as an interpreter, because she spoke Pennsylvania Dutch, that on a serious thought she was obliged to speak in her native language, Pennsylvania Dutch. Her remarks breathed of strain of devotional feeling, which had a solemnizing effect upon the company. The countenance of the speaker was one of the most benign I had ever beheld. After a pause, this is a good song. After a pause which succeeded her discourse, we walked forth to make a survey of the premises. The view was bounded by the surrounding forest, except for the northern direction, where a farmhouse was seen on the top slope of one of the neighboring hills. Mary took us to her milk house, which was a few steps from her door, and was beautifully supplied from a solitary cow that stood near us. A limpid stream from a neighboring elevation was conducted into the building and then guided peacefully away, irrigating the meadows in the course and down the mountain. We now walked to the margin of the woods, where we found a square enclosure of rails, which contained 3 graves, one of the mother, the others of the sisters of Mary, and a head and footstone of another grave. On returning to take our leave, we were surprised to find a table spread with delicious fruit, and we were invited to partake in a manner so sincere and courteous that we did not distrust our kind hostess when she assured us that we were welcome. Mountain Mary had been ailing for several years. As we gather from her will, in November 1819, she was taken seriously ill and was attended by Mrs. Susan de Bennerville, wife of John Keim and daughter of the founder of the American Universalism. Mary died on November 16, 1819. In spite of her fame and reputation, a search of contemporary newspapers does not yield any formal notice of her passing. However, the Mountain Mary legend continued to grow. In 1822, it was already widely known. In that year, a poem about her appeared in the Phantom Barge and other poems by the author of the Limner in Philadelphia. It gives the substance of the Mountain Mary legend, and so it is worthy of quotation. Whoever was trod by Schuylkill's shore, where Ole's hills are stretched along, and in romantic beauty soar, has heard of Mary Young. They tell for many mile around where her lone dwelling may be found, and show the green hill where it stands surrounded by cultured lands, where yet the traveler stops to see the poor and humble devotee. Far from the world and all its strife, old Mary dwells alone, and though she treads the vale of life, her mind is not overthrown. But the bright evening of her days is passed away in prayer and praise, like that fair bird which latest form, and full of music's magic power, and who in death awakes a tone far sweeter than her life had known. She owns no sect, but thus has trod the path of piety from youth, and she is one who worships God, in spirit and in truth. Her praise is pure, devoid of art, the adoration of the heart, and though 'tis simple, has no less the majesty of holiness, and shines as bright when prayer is heard, as oft by loftier life prepared. As sweet star of evening shines when sinking nightly to repose, towards life's last goal she now declines the horizons of her close. With as much calm serenity as though she waited but to die, as though the laws of time were over, and she were lingering on the shore, till the light bark of death should come to bear her to a happy home. There is a little spot which she now holds within her cottage view. There she sleeps her line of ancestry, and she will also sleep there too. And though the name of Mary Young be not on earth remembered long, there is a world where virtue lives, beyond the limit memory gives, and from its earthly frailties free, blooms on in one eternity. There's actually a new book about Mary coming out I'd like to get. Did anybody have any questions yet? I don't see any. Okay. Mary was said to be a very intelligent and religious woman, and was visited by her neighbors to have her advice on their difficulties, which was often so judicious and far-seeing that she was thought by some to have a way of acquiring knowledge unknown to many. The most interesting feature in her character was her great industry. She kept 3 or 4 cows, food for which she raised on a meadow near her cottage. The grass she used to cut herself, and after drying she would carry home. Her cattle were cared for in a superior manner, and consequently she was enabled to make a great deal of butter. This she carried on her head to a person who took it to the market for her, and who lived about 3 miles away. She also had bees and collected large quantities of honey. These appear to have been her occupations, which did not only enable her to live, but to make considerable money. I got 2 hours left, y'all, till I have to go somewhere. I have to leave this house at 4 a.m. to be somewhere at 5 a.m. Here we now see how the Mountain Mary legend is growing, somewhat slowly at first, and the character of the legend is beginning to emerge. By the time that I, Daniel Rupp, wrote his history of Berks in Lebanon, Mountain Mary was a full-blown legend. Mrs. Charles Evans of Reading had composed a longish poem of 36 strophes that kept the Mountain Mary legend alive. Oh, we have another poem. There underneath this mountain stone lies Mary Young, who lived alone, high on the lofty mountain side, beloved and honored until she died. Loved and honored by the few, who gave to virtue virtue's hue. Stranger she that's buried here was humble, pious, and sincere. The even temper of her days she passed in grateful prayer and praise. Her heart was like a gentle dove that came from heaven with promised love. Her head, her hand, her cottage door were open to the rich and the poor. Her faith confirmed her, well resigned, so sweetly calmed, so pure her mind. The God of mercy from his throne looked down and claimed her as his own. Interestingly, as far as the Mountain Mary legend is concerned, little was being said about her folk medicine, about her traveling over the countryside to comfort and to heal the sick. By 1880, the legend of Mountain Mary was given new impetus in the novelette Die Burg Maria, written in High German and translated here. How forceful an impact this story made on a culture then already growing weary of reading German cannot be essayed. The novelette takes many liberties, yet it still stands apart from all other versions of the Mountain Mary legend by the structure and art of its composition. It is a myth. Its characteristics can do no wrong. Here all is sentiment idealization. Man's struggle, as in the old Greek myths, is against fate, against darkness, and resides in events that dominate us. What this novel achieved was to put the Mountain Mary legend into universal mythological frame, thus making it, one sense, a classical tale of the Pennsylvania Dutch during the Revolution. As the story of Regina Hartman became mythological, standing for the suffrage of frontier families during the Troubles, so this novel of Mountain Mary, expanded a traditional theme, has become the classical mythological projection of Pennsylvania Dutch life during the American Revolution. Okay. Is the story here or not? I thought the story was going to be here translated, but it's not. Does anybody have any questions yet? Y'all are not doing a good job at keeping me awake. You are of no help. Alright, hexery, the practice of witchcraft among the Pennsylvania Dutch. The occult practice of witchcraft among the Pennsylvania Dutch, despite its longevity, has rarely been accurately presented. There is undoubtedly no other field of folklore where the Dutch folkways have been more misunderstood than the practice of hexery. From the earliest years of the 18th century to the present day, hexery has remained an underground belief and practice. Only in recent years has enough evidence been collected to present an introductory study. In the Dutch folk culture, the practice of powwowing is often confused with hexery. As in the rest of Western civilization, there has existed and does exist among the Dutch a belief in black and white magic. The art of white magic in the Dutch country is referred to as braucherei, or popularly known as powwow. Hexery, of course, is the art of black magic. Powwowers used to heal in the art of braucherei are derived from God and God alone, but the powers employed in hexery are derived from the devil. For over 2 centuries, the Dutch have not hesitated to use braucherei in the healing of their sick and afflicted. This is a form of faith healing, has many counterparts in one civilization. However, hexery was always considered evil, and only desperate people have resorted to its secret powers. Pennsylvania Dutch witchcraft has been traced back to Europe and is typical of what was popular in medieval days. Its persistence among the Dutch and Dutch is German, Pennsylvania Dutch. It is due in part to the publishing of various occult books and in the efforts of several people to make a living from believers in it. In almost every community existing side by side with the practice of braucherei was the cautious belief in hexery. The astonishing fact about black and white magic among the Dutch is that it does exist and it actually works. Cases upon cases are recorded from all parts of Dutch country where the powers of black and white magic have been successful. In this success, more than anything else, that has kept this alive, these 2 supernatural forces in the parts of Dutch country today, there still exist powwow and hex doctors who derive a livelihood from performing services for believers of these arts. Likewise, it is possible to find a great percentage of Dutch people who will be alarmed over the mentioning of the cursed 6th and 7th books of Moses. According to folk belief, the owner of these 2 witchcraft volumes will have great satanic powers. It was believed only slightly less dangerous were the people who owned other notorious Dutch occult books written in German. Although the exact number is not known at this time, there have been more than 25 different editions of witchcraft books printed in Dutch country. Hexery was at its height of popularity in the 19th century, but many of the famous publicized cases occurred in the first half of the 20th century. Now again, see, I need to do some content videos about the origins of the word hex. Because y'all know that come from my fucking culture. Do you know how many things in America come from my fucking culture? We brought Easter and Easter bunnies here. We brought Christmas trees here. We brought Easter eggs here. We brought so many traditions to this country. They all go back to Pennsylvania Dutch. Okay. The Pennsylvania Dutch witch, which is called a hex. Witches in Dutch County do not wear black capes, keep black cats, ride on brooms all night, toil over cauldrons. These persons are ordinary country folk, but for some reason have chosen to enter a contract with supernatural powers. Of course, by becoming a member of the Devil's League, they are eternally damned and will never enter the kingdom. In return for their souls, the powers which are given to these persons, can be used to their advantage on earth. The mysterious powers of these hex are sometimes beyond this wildest imagination. One of the most common practices is to steal the milk. So common is this that many people in Dutch country have reportedly observed the witches do it, without being anywhere near the cow or the farm. The witch is able to, by remote control, take the milk from the cow and bring it to her own kitchen. To do this, the witch drapes a towel over the back of the kitchen chair and places a container on the floor beneath it, and then I'm not even going to finish reading it because I already know. You milk the towel like you're milking a cow udder, and you draw the milk from your neighbor's cow and you milk it through the towel. I know that's what it's going to say. She then begins milking the towel by pulling on the ends of it and directing the milk into the container. When it is time to milk the cows on the nearby farm that day, the farmer will find that one or more of his cows have been milked dry. If a witch would like to make trouble for a farmer, she can make the cow also give bloody milk. To fight this witchcraft, the farm wife would take this bloody milk and heat it on the kitchen stove in a pan. As it was heated, she would stir the milk in the motion of the letter X, and very soon the cow would give pure milk. I've been live for 90 minutes. It sure seems a lot fucking longer than that. In accordance to folk tradition, there are several ways for a person to become a hex, a witch. Nearly all of the methods require the prospective witch to renounce God, and in this way accept leadership of the devil. From different localities in Dutch country, the methods may change, but all methods have a cruel similarity and are seemingly medieval in origin. 3 of these methods are as follows. 1. To become a hex, take a black cat and boil it alive. When the bones and the flesh have in the kettle of hot water. Okay. When they have boiled apart, take a skimming ladle and collect all of the bones with it. Take these bones to a nearby stream and place them in the water. All will sink but one. That bone does not sink, will come to the top of the water and float upstream against the current. When this has been done, that person will be able to be a hex. Number 2. If you wish to become a hex, go to the cow stable and fetch a manure hook. Thereafter, climb on the top of a large pile of manure in the barnyard. Standing on top of this mound, swing the hook 3 times over your head and repeat the following. Here I stand on a pile of manure, and do Jesus Christ abjure. After performing this simple ceremony, the devil will give you the power and you will be a hex. Number 3. If you are really sincere and wish to be a hex, go to the kitchen and draw a large circle on the floor with a piece of coal. Then step inside this circle, hold your hand out, and the devil will come and make his mark in the palm of your hand. After this acceptance, you will be a hex. Persons in Dutch country suspected of being hexes became social outcasts in their communities. The folk believed that if anyone passed the house of a witch or crossed the witch's property, that person might become verhexed, which is bewitched. Likewise, if you should meet a person that you believe to be a hex during hunting season, do not allow her to touch your gun or make any sign with her hands. Should the witch cross her spring strings, for example, she will be able to keep your aim from you, and you will not be able to hit any game. It was popular belief that with the 6th and 7th books of Moses, witches could turn themselves into any type of animal. Particularly widespread is the belief that witches turn themselves into cats to roam the countryside. The witch and the bewitched. In the realm of witchcraft, not anything is safe from being bewitched. Not people, not animals, not even matter. Verhexed persons were numerous in the past and still present a problem in contemporary Dutchland. Every year there is a certain percentage of people who believe themselves to be verhexed and seek the help of a present powwow and hex doctor. The nature of their bewitchment may vary, but generally falls into one or more categories. 1. The witch keeps their sleep from them, so they will be many days without rest. 2. The witch will prevent them from having an appetite or receiving nutrition, thus they waste away. 3. The witch will invoke a physical sensation such as a choking response. 4. The witch will bless them with bad luck, and they will fail in any endeavor that they may pursue. Of these 4 classes, the first 2 make up the large percentage. Of all known hexery cases, if the victim of these 2 types of bewitchment cannot break the spells, certain death is sure to ensue. In the notorious witch murder case of York County, there's a movie about that. Actually, there's a couple movies about that. One I highly recommend is called Apprentice to Murder. It has Donald Sutherland in it. It's a really good version of this story that is being spoken of here. There's another one called Hex House or House on Hex Hill. Hex House. I think it's called Hex House. That's another movie about this case. It was a very famous witchcraft case across the whole country, but definitely in Pennsylvania. Everybody knows. Everybody knows about the Hex Hollow. Okay. In the notorious witch murder case in York County in 1929, it was the thought of eventual death which prompted the verhexed person to make sure the witch was dead by burning the body in kerosene. Usually the persons that are bewitched are successful in breaking the spells with the help of a highly gifted hex doctor of black and white magic. The following is a typical case involving the wasting away of a verhexed person. In the 1940s, there was an infant in eastern Berks County who was constantly crying and refused to eat. The parents tried everything they could to bring the infant's appetite but failed. The child's grandmother told the parents of a Braucher in the nearby Emmitsville who was very wise, suggesting that they try him as a last resort. Not having heard of this wizard, the parents were at first reluctant to visit him, but at last decided there was little else to do. So when they arrived at the wizard's house, they were greeted by him, and without any talking on their part, this man told them who they were, why they had come, and what was there to see him. The parents, surprised by his wisdom, were also told by the Braucher that the child was verhexed and that the witch lived in their neighborhood. He then gave them instructions as how to break this spell and avenge the witch. First, they had to make a wooden image of the witch, and then drive a nail into the image, but not into the heart, or the witch herself would die. After piercing the image with the nail, they were to bury the image under the eaves of the house. Upon coming home with their child, the father did exactly as the wise man said. Within 3 days, the infant son stopped crying and began to eat normally. And at the same time, a woman in the neighborhood suffered a broken leg. The same leg that the father drove the nail into on the wooden image. The most valuable possessions a Dutch farmer has is his animals, and therefore they are also prime targets of the witch. Of all the animals on the farm, the cow was the victim of the most witchcraft. To tell if his animals were verhexed, the farmer would look for several symptoms: animals losing hair, animals becoming bristly, animals losing their appetite, and animals becoming very restless and not sleeping. Once a farmer suspected that one of his animals was verhexed, he consulted a nearby powwow or hex doctor. If he followed the directions, the animals could usually be saved. In a particular verhex case, in eastern Berks County, the wisdom of the powwow doctor was not followed, and the cow did die. The case was recorded as follows. One of the best milking cows of a farmer became ill, and it continued not to eat. If it continued not to eat, it was certain to die. The wise grandmother of this family told the farmer that the cow was not sick of natural causes, but verhexed, and that the farmer should ride to Reading to see the powwow doctor. He was reluctant, but went into Reading anyway. The powwow doctor told the farmer that when he went back to the farm, he will receive a visitor. The visitor would be the witch. This visitor will bring him a present, but he is by no means to accept the gift and bring it into the house. If this warning was heeded, the cow would once again be a good milker and eat regularly. That day, while the farmer ate supper, a visitor came knocking at the door. The family could see it was old Bess, who was long suspected of being a witch in the community. Without any warning to the farmer, the hired hand quickly jumped up from the supper table, ran out to the porch, and grabbed the basket of apples which Bess had with her, and then dumped them all over the front lawn. The hired hand, knowing what the powwow doctor said, did not wait for any orders from the farmer, and of course not only surprised old Bess, but the farmer as well. Because the hired hand did not act tactfully, the farmer and his family took pity on old Bess and went outside, gathered the apples, and brought them into the house. The following morning the cow was dead. The grandmother said to her dying day that the family should have followed the powwow doctor's advice. I got 2 more hours. 2 more fucking hours to go. about to fucking close my TikTok. I swear. They are shadow banning me so bad. It's not even worth it. The Hex Doctor of Dutch Country. Located in various parts of Dutchland are powwows and hex doctors, whom the folk seek and rely on for help in dealing with white and black magic. In general, the powwow doctors specialize in curing physical sickness and injuries through the use of secret incantations and ceremonies. This form of Pennsylvania Dutch faith healing is only possible if the patient believes in God. On some occasions, people who are bewitched enlist the help of these wizards to break the spells. However, the powwower would never cast a black spell. The not too popular hex doctor, on the other hand, not only practiced hex breaking black spells, but in casting them as well. His area's specialization was hexery itself, and there were very few deeds he could not perform. People that sought revenge for a modest fee could have a hex doctor put a spell on another person. The power of the hex doctor for a modest fee could have a hex doctor put a spell on another person. The power of the hex doctor is derived from the devil via the several hex books available to them. Since the nature of the hex doctor's occupation was so notorious, often he would have to travel about the countryside to recruit clients. Many a case is recorded of a cow or other farm animal stubbornly refusing to be herded into the barn until the noble hex doctor, who just happened to be in the neighborhood, would be asked to induce it in. Of course, out of gratitude, the doc was rewarded for his successful effort in restoring the cow to a good disposition. In Dutch occult folk medicine, there is the belief that if a person should come in contact with an object used in either black or white magic curing, that person might catch the disease. For instance, there was a case of a hex doctor in eastern Berks County who was accused of drawing off sickness or a spell from one person and transferring it to another person close by. In this way, the doctor ensured himself an abundance of patients with ailments to be cured. Never equaled the number of powwow doctors in any area. The number of hex doctors in Dutch country probably never equaled the number of powwow doctors. In some instances, the hex doctor was not always clearly free from guilt in certain cases of witchcraft, and was considered not much better than the actual witch. Certainly these doctors had as much power as the witch, since they also had the occult books of the knowledge in their field. However, some of the hex doctors became very influential in their communities, and the proper use of their power and talent was never doubted. Like the better wizards, these witch doctors had a great reputation, and their fame spread over many miles. Unlike the powwow doctors, the bewitched people that came to the hex doctors did not have to believe in God, nor the power of the devil. The very fact that they were bewitched and being tormented was realistic enough for them to believe in the existence of God and the devil. Once cured of their bewitchment, the patient did not owe his soul to the devil, but was expected to reward the hex doctor with some sort of compensation. If the amount was not to the liking of the doctor, there was always the fear that he might use his power in black magic to make the person aware of that fact. The success of both hex doctors and powwow doctors is attributed to the religious nature of the Dutch folk, who believe in the personal existence of God through and the devil. For centuries in Germany and for a few hundred years in Pennsylvania, this belief in these two supernatural beings has been made very real and vivid in their culture in a number of ways. Probably the most popular instrument which has kept alive the personal nearness to God has been the Himmelsbrief. Himmelsbrief translate to heaven's letter. These are letters believed to have fallen from heaven at various places in Europe and at different times, written in gold. Usually the letters contain certain religious ideas or commandments which point out that the children of God must walk the straight and narrow path, or they cannot expect to enter the kingdom. Of these letters, the most common one is the Modenberg Brief, which was believed to have been written in gold. It is a popular belief that if anyone carries a Himmelsbrief with them or keeps one in the home, that person cannot be harmed, and that home cannot be struck by lightning or fire or flood or anything like that. Many soldiers of the Dutch country have carried them into war and have returned unharmed. Next to the existence of the widely circulated letters in Dutch country is a spiritual book called The Heart of Man. In this book, through a series of pictures, is depicted the human soul as it starts out in life and as it progresses. The soul can either be inhabited by God and be an agent for good, or it can do the workshop of the devil and be an agent of evil. These very vivid illustrations, needless to say, have certainly left their mark on the minds of the Dutch people, as they have been exposed to them from early childhood. The Heart of Man has been printed many times in Dutchland and is quite common. With the existence of other religious folklore and beliefs, it is not too hard to realize why, in the 20th century, that the belief in hexery still exists. Likewise, it is also understandable why the Pennsylvania Dutch is the #1 folk culture in America. Hex books from the Dutch. And again, hex means witch. In the 18th century, it appears that a substantial attempt was made by the Dutch folk to record known formulas of both white and black magic. These early manuscript collections were the forerunners of the published books of white and black magic printed in the early 19th century. Undoubtedly, the person responsible for the great awakening to braucherei and hexery in the early 1800s was John George Holman from Berks County. His widely popular occult book, The Long Lost Friend, was first published in 1820. This book, although dealing mostly with powwowing formula, gave particular attention to hexery. In 1820, the hex book was a favorite tool of all powwow doctors and was always a good seller for any printer in the Dutch country. Listed in Holman's works are over 180 different formula which were good for treating typical sicknesses, diseases, occult and non-occult remedies of man and beast. Most hexery practiced was not limited to Holman's formula in later years, but was divided also between two other books, Albertus Magnus, The Egyptian Secrets, and to a lesser extent, the infamous 6th and 7th books of Moses. In the 3-volume work of Egyptian Secrets, there are over 500 different entries on black and white magic. It cannot be ascertained whether the 13th century German scholar Albert the Great investigated any of the formulas or was the author of this actual book during his life. Albertus Magnus did investigate and experiment with formulas similar to this, but it is not believed that the Egyptian Secrets are a report of his findings. The more probable conclusion is that his name was associated with this book of formula so that the book would be accepted by people. False imprints were a trick of many. For example, Homan's long-lost friend was reprinted about 1839 in Montgomery County, but Homan's name was deleted and Albert Magnus's name was given as the author. The book was also known as Albert Magnus' House Friend, even though it was an exact copy of Homan's 1820 edition. The only definite observation which can be made about the Book of Egyptian Secrets is that it is originally from Europe, Germany, and is not written by Pennsylvania Dutchmen. The influence of this book was first apparent in Dutch country after the Civil War, and an edition was printed in Allentown, Lay County in 1869, which bears his name. The 6th and 7th books of Moses is an ambiguous one. According to folk tradition, any hex book known to have great power was rewarded this nickname. However, there does exist such a book, printed several times in the German language. It is doubtful that its use in the Dutch country was ever as deep-rooted and as widely practiced as the other 2 books. For the most part, these books containing the 2 volumes consist of a great deal of unintelligible seals, designs, hieroglyphs. Listed in the back of the book is a key designed to use the Psalms of David in curing various ills. There is little evidence to support this book's existence in Dutch country earlier than possibly 1871. In one particular 6th and 7th books of Moses printed in Philadelphia, there are a few of Homan's 1820 formula incorporated in its contents. This multiple hexery edition may also have had a false imprint and could have been published in Europe. Considering the hexery formulas found in the Dutch country, which is traceable to the known 6th and 7th books of Moses, its origin is definitely 20th century. It would thus appear that the current book known by this name was relatively late in appearing on the hexery scene in Pennsylvania. Among the Dutch folk, there is a general belief that all hexery formula were written by the devil. If anyone conspired to use the material in the hex books, they would automatically bind their soul to the devil and be eternally damned. According to folk belief, anyone who reads in a hex book must reread the text backwards as he has read it forwards, or that person will be under the power of the devil. Thus, if a person wanted to cast spells, he could read that particular part of the book and cast it, provided that he would reread it backwards to keep from becoming damned. Reading oneself fast, reading too much in the book, and not being able to read yourself out of it is a very serious matter. In order to break the devil's hold over the reader, the victim must seek the assistance of a powwow or hex doctor to help him break the devil's hold. On the other hand, it was widely believed that a possessor of a hex book would gain fortune and be very lucky. In the later issues of Homan's hex book was placed the following memo, which informed the reader that he will be free of all danger if he carry this book. Whoever carries this book with him is safe from all his enemies, visible and invisible, and whosoever has this book with him cannot die without the holy corpse, nor be drowned in any water, burn up in any fire, nor can any unjust sentence be passed upon him. I always carry a copy of Long Lost Friend with me. I have a long day today, guys, and I have to fucking leave here at 4 o'clock because I got to be somewhere at 5 a.m. And then I got to come back and try to sleep for a little bit because today is the third Friday of the month, which means I have to go to McGee to the Hands of Earth Energy Shop and do readings, and I'm also taking, today's the day I'm taking all my products. So she's giving me a space in the store, and I'm going to set up all my shit in there today, and hopefully I have the fucking energy to do it. Witchcraft on the farm. Most witchcraft lore discovered on the farm was employed either to prevent bewitchment or to break witch spells that had already occurred. In almost every instance, the means by which the farmer wished to break or prevent witchcraft was hidden from view and not very noticeable. We would usually hide shit in the door frame. You know, like that, the piece that goes around the door, the wooden, yeah, we would hide things in there. Himmel's briefs and all kinds of stuff. Little bags and sachets. So yeah, it was hidden out of sight. You wouldn't see the stuff. The world famous hex signs, which are printed on barns of so many of the Dutch barns, were never in the past, not at present, used in any respect in the field of hexery. These highly decorative stars have always been painted for attractiveness, and to that end, have well served their purpose. To find evidence of a belief in witchcraft among the Dutch, one must search the rafters of barns, the roofs, the lintels of doorways, that's what I just was talking about, and the less obvious peg holes. Yeah, nail holes. If we were nailing wood together or something, we'd put something in the nail hole and then put the nail in it. Hexery, being an occult art, cannot be as readily noticeable as a 6-foot barn star painted in gaudy colors on a barn front for all the world to see. There are doubtless many different hexery formula which were used on the farmsteads, and in various areas the methods may have varied considerably. Listed here are several types of formula, both exclusive and commonplace. I don't need to be hearing Mr. Sandman bring me a dream. I'm tired. And I gotta drive fucking 45 minutes. The hex letter, the Himmel's brief is what we were just discussing. All parts of Dutchland hex letters were written, often by hex doctors, and hidden in the barn to prevent witches from entering and doing harm to the animals. Usually these letters are written in High German and are concealed under the floorboards, in the rafters, or are put in the peg holes. The following is a translation of a hex letter discovered in Macugii County in 1935, which was under a floorboard. just started watering. Demon head, I forbid thee my house and premises. I forbid thee my horse and cow stable. I forbid thee my bedstead, that thou mayest not breathe upon me. Breathe into some other house, until thou hast ascended every hill, until thou hast counted every fence post, until thou hast crossed every water, and thus clear away, and thus dear day may come again into my house. In the name of God, Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, amen. And then it would be done 3 times with 3 crosses. Always done in 3s. The mercury sacks. If the farmer discovered that several calves had been stillborn, he would suspect that the cows who bore them had been verhexed. In order to break this spell and continued bad luck, small muslin bags were filled with mercury and hung over each of the cow stalls. The next born calves would not be expected to be born dead. The Drevel's Dreck, what we've been talking about, the asafetta. Similar to this above method, if a farmer discovered that his animals were verhexed and not behaving well, he would hang muslin bags of the devil's dirt, asafetta, above the stable doorway where the animals would pass through. Often, to prevent sickness in Dutch country, this herb was hung about a child's neck in a bag until the danger period was over. Witches' balls, which I actually still make, and they are available on my website. In Dutch country, farmers often select for butchering the poorest of their milk-producing cows. In this way, they continued to build up a herd of only very good milkers. However, on occasion, it is discovered after butchering that the cow was bewitched, and a large ball of hair was shot into its stomach by the witch. This ball of hair, the hex balla, was of course the cause of why the cow's limited milk capacity, and was the delight of the witch. Hexafoos, which means witch's foot. To prevent witches from entering the barn to perform evil, farmers sometimes drew or scratched a small symbol on the door frame or sill, totally hidden from view. The hexafoos looks like, it kind of looks like a peace sign without the circle. Like it's like the line and then like 2 legs. It looks like a 3-toed like chicken foot without the circle. It's called a hexafoos. For hexed horses. To prevent witches from hexing horses, the person should piss in a pot. You ever wonder where that saying come from, right? Piss pot? Piss poor? Because you didn't have a pot to piss in? Thank the Pennsylvania Dutch. You piss in a pot, you add oats to it, and you feed the oats to the horses. Afterwards, no witch will be able to put a spell on them. Oh my God, an hour and a half. Hope I'm not too delirious to drive. Animal blood. To keep witches from entering the barn, the blood from both hogs and cows were mixed together and then smeared on the top of every doorway entrance to the stables. For hexed horses, if when a person visits you, the horses become restless and cannot be kept tied, that person is a hex. Possessed animals. Animals which are possessed by evil spirits and are a constant source of trouble can only be unalived by a silver bullet. Hexing in the home. Besides the bewitchment of people and farm animals, there is a considerable percentage of occult lore associated with the farm and farm chores. Often when farm women found that she was having unusually bad luck, she would curse the woman she believed to be the witch that was causing it. If the cider in the barrel would not turn to vinegar, the names of 3 suspected witches were shouted into the hole of the barrel. Before long, the young vinegar would soon turn sour. It was believed by many folk that witches took great delight in making household chores difficult and in tormenting the farmer's wife and her helpers. The following selections will show cases of bewitchment and solutions for stopping or preventing witchcraft in the home. When butter will not churn, that will burn the witch. What? I think there's something missing here. I think what it's trying to say is you put a red hot poker. If you can't, if the butter won't churn to, the cream won't churn to butter, you put a red hot poker into the milk, the cream, and it would burn the witch. I think that's what's missing there. The bewitched churn. When butter will not churn, okay, a red hot horseshoe is put in it. That will burn the witch out and bring the butter to come. Silver balls. When 3 small balls with silvery luster are found in the family dinner pot, the family has been bewitched. To break the spell, take the silver balls and shoot them into a white oak tree. To prevent a witch from entering the house, place a broom across the doorway and no witch can step over it. I actually said that one about an hour ago. The silver bullets. If your butter churn is bewitched and the cream will not churn, load a pew-pew with silver and fire into the churn. This will kill the witch. If the milk is bewitched, fire into the milk crock. Stolen property. If some person has stolen something from you, take 3 twigs from a tree and place them on the axle of a wagon. Then put back the wagon wheel with the twigs caught between the axle and the hub. Should the thief not return the stolen property within 1 day, turn the wagon wheel around slowly. And if this does not work, the next day turn the wheel around faster. The thief will very quickly appear and sit on the tongue of the wagon. He will not be able to move until the owner releases him. Hazel switches. Should your butter churn be prevented from operating because of witchcraft, take hazel switches and lash the churn. The witch will soon let you churn the butter. To repulse a witch. If you suspect a person of being a witch and fear that they may do you harm, next time you are in their company, say under your breath, "Kiss my ass." And this will certainly make the witch uneasy and they cannot harm you. Of course, we say it in German, which is much funnier. The test for witchcraft. If you believe a person to be a witch, when they come to call, place a broom in the oven. We covered this one earlier. As the broom becomes hotter and hotter, the witch will suffer and have to leave your house. If the person you suspect does not become restless and leave your house, you are safe. They are not a witch. All right, a hexery formula in Dutch country can be divided into 4 general areas: protective and preventive, spell casting, spell breaking, and supernatural power. Protective and preventive witchcraft is any method used to prohibit witches and evil spirits from bothering both man and animal. Spell casting is any magic formula used to cause a reaction in either man or animal. Spell breaking, on the other hand, is any method which is used to terminate or break a spell that has already been done. The fourth category, supernatural power, is any type of cast formula which enables a person to do more than is ordinary or normal. Hey, we don't need the heat, y'all. It is not necessary unless it's necessary. Chill the fuck out. I have very hot spirits. They're getting a little excited. Alright. If a man or beast is attacked by wicked people, and banish them forever from the house so that they may never be able to do any harm. Bed goblin and all ye evil spirits, I forbid you my bedstead. My couch I forbid you. In the name of God, my house and home I forbid you. In the name of Holy Trinity, my blood, my flesh, my body and soul, I forbid you all the nail holes in my house and home, till you have traveled over every hillcock, waded through every water, have counted all the leaflets of the trees, and counted all the starlets in the sky, until that beloved day arrives when the Mother of God will bring forth her second son. This formula 3 times spoken in the house of a person whom we seek to aid, always adding in the right place both as baptismal and other names, has been found excellent in many hundreds of witchcraft cases. To prevent witches from entering a stable, take a white elfin coop wood, a white wood, make plugs therefrom, and drive them into the doors and thresholds of the stable, and no witch can enter. If a witch already in the house, it cannot leave. To protect cattle from witchcraft, they're using a sator square. If y'all don't know what a sator square is, this is a sator square. It's also really good against fire and lightning. Supposedly, if there's a fire, you can draw the sator square onto a china plate or a porcelain plate, something breakable, and you throw the plate into the fire so it breaks and it will extinguish the fire. To secure oneself against wicked people whilst traveling and being in danger of being attacked. Speak thee 3 times. 2 wicked eyes have overshadowed me, but 3 other eyes are overshadowing me too. The one of God, the one of Father, and the other of... No. One of God the Father, the other of God the Son, the other of the Holy Spirit. They watch my blood and flesh, they my marrow and bone, and all other large and small limbs. They shall be protected in the name of God. You make the sign of the cross 3 times, and you say it 3 times. A preventative which must be carried upon the body for the arts and wiles of gitanas? What is this? Just the same as the prophet Jonah, the prototype had been provided for during 3 days and 3 nights in a body of a whale. So may the Almighty God protect me against all danger in this fatherly kindness. To prevent a person escaping. Why are we being rowdy? Why are we being rowdy? You're cooling down, I appreciate that. But what's with the ear? What's with the ears? We don't need to be rowdy. Unless there's need to be rowdy. And you need to tell me about it. Oh, where was I? To prevent a person from escaping. Take a needle wherewith the gown of a corpse was sewed, and draw this needle through the hat or shoe of him whom you seek to fasten, and he cannot escape. A charm to gain advantage of a man of superior strength. I, person's name, breathe upon thee. The drops of blood I take from thee, the first out of thy heart, the other out of thy liver, and the third out of thy vital power. And in this I deprive thee of thy strength and manliness. 3 times as always. To compel a thief to return stolen goods. Now, I believe these ones, I think these are from Long Lost Friend. I know the wagon wheel one was. Early in the morning before sunrise, you must go to a pear tree, and take with you 3 nails out of a coffin, or 3 horseshoe nails that have never been used. And holding these toward the rising sun, you must say, O thief, I bind thee, I bind you by the first nail, which I drive into thy skull and thy brain, to return the goods thou hast stolen to thy former place. Thou shalt feel as sick and as anxious to see men, and to see the place you stole from, as felt the nail, which I drive into your lungs and liver, to return the stolen goods to their former. Thou shalt feel as sick and as anxious to see men, and to see the place you have stolen from, as did Pilate in the fires of hell. The third nail I shall drive into thy foot, O thief, in order that thou shalt return the stolen goods to thy same place from which thou hast stolen them. Compel thee by the 3 holy nails, which were driven through the hands and feet of Christ, to return the stolen goods to the very same place from which thou hast stolen them. O thief, I bind thee and compel thee by the 3 holy nails, which were driven through the hands of Christ, we're doing 3 times, of course, to return the stolen goods to the same place from they were hast stolen from. The 3 nails, however, must be greased with the grease of an executed criminal or sinful person. A charm that no wolf or dog may bite or bark at you. Speak the following 3 times, sign of the cross 3 times. Thus did it happen on a Friday. It was when our Lord God rode over the field of grass. He carried neither money nor purse with him, for he owned naught but his 5 holy wounds. May God protect us against the wolves, dogs, and hounds. He gave to St. Peter the keys for the locks, wherewith to close the jaws of wolves and dogs, in the name of Jesus Christ, our Father, Son, 3 times. Alright. To break a spell when a man or cattle is plagued by goblins. I don't think this one was in Long Lost Friend. Doesn't sound familiar. Go on Good Friday or Golden Sunday ere the sun rise in the east, to the hazelnut bush. Cut a stick therefrom with a sympathetic weapon, making 3 cuts above the hand towards the rise of the sun. In the name of the Holy Trinity, carry the stick noiselessly into the house. Conceal it so that no one can get a hold of it. When a man or beast is plagued by evil or goblins, walk 3 times around such a haunted person while pronouncing the 3 holiest names. After this proceeding, take off the hat and hit it with the stick, and thus you smite the wicked being. You send me. Oh, I got about an hour. What are you barking at? It is 3 a.m. What's going on? I know something's going on. When the milk leaves a cow, take a new earthen vessel, like terracotta, for which you must pay without bartering. In this dish, place the water of such an affected cow, whilst calling the 3 highest names. Also put a knife with 3 cents in the dish. Thereupon put the dish in a locked chest, and this chest again in another larger chest. And the latter in the cow trough, so that the earthen vessel is closed up by 3 locks. If after this somebody calls to obtain something from you, do not give it to them. How to relieve a person or animals from being forhexed. 3 false tongues have bound thee, 3 holy tongues have spoken for thee. The first is God the Father, the second is God the Son, the third is God the Holy Spirit. They will give you blood and flesh. Flesh and blood, peace and comfort are grown upon thee, born on thee and lost on thee. If any man trample on thee with his horse, God will bless thee. And the Holy Superior, has any woman trampled on thee, God and the body of Mary shall bless thee. If any servant has given thee trouble, I bless thee through God and the laws of heaven. If any servant, maid, or woman has led you astray, God and the heavenly constellations shall bless thee. Heaven is above thee, the earth is beneath thee, and thou art in between. I bless thee against all trampling by horses. Our dear Lord walked about in his bitter afflictions and death, and all the Jews that had spoken and promised trembled in their falsehoods and mockery. Look, now trembleth the Son of God, as he had the itch. And then spoke Jesus, have not the itch, and no one shall have it. Whoever will assist me to carry the cross, him will I free from the itch. In the name of God, Father, Son, Holy Ghost, 3 times sign the cross. The itch. A remedy to cure sickness. Let the person in perfect soberness and without having conversed with anyone, make water in a pot before sunrise. Boil an egg and add the urine. Bore 3 small holes in this egg with a needle and carry it to an anthill made by big ants. and the person will feel relieved as soon as the egg is devoured. It's got to be big ants. In the Appalachians, Pennsylvania, in the mountains, we got big ants. Like, big, fat, black fucking ants, man. God, the big ants. To cause a witch to die within 1 minute. First, try to obtain a piece of the heart of the cattle which has been attacked. Then take a little butter and fry the piece therein, as if preparing it for eating. Then take 3 nails from the coffin of a corpse and pierce with them the heart through and through, piercing the heart and killing the witch. These are facts of the same moment. All will be correct at once, good and approved. To make oneself invisible. You must obtain the ear of a black cat. Boil it in the milk of a black cow. Then make a thumb cover of it and wear it on the thumb, and no one will be able to see you. To be able to see in the dark. Grease your eyes with the blood of a bat. We have another one too, to hit anything that your pew-pew, to make your pew-pew never miss and hit anything that it's aimed at, you tie the heart of a bat to your right arm with a red string. For gaining a lawful suit. If anyone has to settle any claim by way of the law, let him take some of the largest kind of sage and write the name of the 12 apostles on the leaves and put them in his shoes before entering the courthouse, and he shall certainly win the suit. When every game you engage in, tie the heart of a bat with a red silk string to the right arm, and you will win every game of cards. You can, like I just said, you can also do that so your pew-pew hits anything that it's aimed at. To obtain money. Take the eggs of a swallow, boil them, return them to the nest, and if the old swallow brings a root to the nest, take it and put it in your purse and carry it in your pocket and be happy. Alright, we're into witchcraft folk tales. Since there is a realization of a personal God and his opposing force, many folk tales in Dutchland reveal the struggles between these infinite beings. There is hardly a community in the entire countryside which does not have its favorite storyteller and witchcraft tales. As the powers of both God and the devil are without limits, so are the tales of which we speak of. The supernatural and how man is caught between them. Each tale is so real to life, storytellers insert the names of people into their community. The folk mind does not doubt for a minute that the story is anything else but true. Most famed tall tales of Dutch country are the Elspiegel tales. I've done several on my channel about Elspiegel. He is a wise young Dutchman seemingly delights in outsmarting the devil. He is the Paul Bunyan of the Pennsylvania Dutch. There are endless tales of his adventures and his travels through Dutchland, but the following two are amongst the most popular. One day, Elshpigel and the devil were talking, and the devil boasted how hot it is in hell. Elshpigel retorted to the devil that the hotter it was, the better he liked it. The devil then made a challenge to Elshpigel to see which one of them could stand the heat the best. The challenge was accepted, and the two of them went off to a nearby bake oven. They fired up the bake oven, and then both of them crawled inside. After a very short time, while Elshpigel feared that he would soon burn up and started to crawl out the door, the devil yelled to him, "Where are you going?" And Elshpigel replied, "It's too cold in here. I'm going to put more wood on the fire." At that instant, the devil quickly followed him out and said, "You win. You can definitely stand the heat better than I can." In another wager with the devil challenged Elshpigel to a swimming match to see who could swim the furthest. They decided to meet at the Schuylkill River. It's a river, it runs through South Pennsylvania, kind of near Philadelphia, like Berks County. The devil showed up on time, but young Elshpigel was late. When the devil was just about ready to go look for him, he saw Elshpigel coming down the dirt road dragging a calf. And as he got closer, he said to the devil, "Go get some wood for the fire." The devil, puzzled, asked why. Smart Elshpigel replied, "You don't expect me to swim for 40 days and 40 nights without first having a good meal, do you?" With that reply, the devil considered Elshpigel as the better swimmer without even getting in the water. Many were the tales of how certain people had particular power to provide for themselves without appearing to have resources. Such is the case in the following tale, where a Dutch woman was observed to have more than normal luck with her butter. A farmer who suspected his neighbor woman of having supernatural powers knew that she made an enormous amount of butter, but only had 2 cows, from which to get the cream. One day he crept into her spring house and hid under the roof to watch her make the butter. As he watched through the crack in the floor of the loft, he saw her place a red rag in the churn before she closed the lid. In just a few minutes the butter was churned, and she then took a pound after pound out of the tiny churn, much more than the churn was capable of producing. When the old woman left the spring house, the farmer secretly made his exit and went home. The following day, when it was time to churn the butter, he told his wife that he would take care of that chore today. However, this time he put a red rag into the churn with the cream and began to churn. When the butter had just about come, the lid of the churn slowly started to open, and out popped the hand of the devil. To the very frightened Dutchman, the devil held out a book and said, "It won't do you no good, my friend. Your name ain't in my book yet." Okay, this section is the vocabulary of hexery, which this is where it's going to translate from Pennsylvania Dutch and what it means. The word hex is but one of several words that the Pennsylvania Dutch dialects have, which have been assimilated into popular American English. It is accepted by Americans, lingographers. It is recognized in all standard dictionaries. The following is a simple vocabulary list of the word hex as it is used in Dutch country and in Germany. So hex means witch. Hex brief is a piece of paper with hexery witchcraft formula written on it. A hexafus is a witch's foot. Hexahuel is a witch stick with a mysterious moving propeller. Hexbala is a witch's ball. Hex book is the book containing occult knowledge. Hex doctor is a witch doctor. Hexensus is a shot fired to kill or drive out a witch. Hexery is witchcraft. Furhex is bewitched. Hex ring is a circular spot on the ground where nothing will grow. Hex sign is a geometric pattern painted on the front of barns. Hex spell is a witch's spell. Furhexed is bewitched. Waffle hex is a circular waffle produced from a rosette type iron. I got an hour left. This is just going really in depth into hex signs. And go like this. Yeah, baby, twist. This sounds interesting. The Goosebone Prophets of Dutch Country. I need to make some content videos about hex. Because a lot of people use it wrong. They don't even know what it fucking means or where it comes from. Alright, Mary Shade, a longtime resident of La Boxville, was best remembered for traveling about on foot carrying her trademark umbrella. Being such an old-timer, she was always prepared for any type of weather. As a folk personality, Mary was well known for her faith healing until she was taken ill and died in 1970. She lived in seclusion similar to the folk legend of Mountain Mary. She lived locally upon Chimney Rock Hill. Miss Shade was very much at home with Mother Nature and subscribed to most of the folk wisdom about the weather, even consulting her pet rooster when in doubt. Mary Shade was a Christian faith healer who lived outside La Boxville, atop Chimney Rock's Hill. Okay, we already went repeating that. She was a widow and was considered something of a sage. Her merciful compassion for the sick and afflicted was witnessed by Jacob Moyer, a Pikeville storekeeper who was a recipient of her healing gift. This modern world has long been built around the premises of traditions of the old, some of them mightily romantic and delightful. Take, for example, the detailed account later in this chapter of a turn-of-the-century meeting of 18 local experts who reported their findings based on rural folk beliefs in the World Meteorological Organization Scientific Society. It has long been recognized that barometric pressures and weather affect people's health and furthermore emotional well-being, and we as a people seem to be returning to a deeper sense of appreciation of what weather may do or not do to the human system. The indigenous people, for instance, realized that the caterpillar wore his fur long and thick when they should prepare for additional supplies for winter. Scientists also understand that weather, be it extreme hot or extreme cold, may be a deciding factor in determining the sex of an unborn child. Even the turn of the century meteorological gathering reported that during a summer thunderstorm, more people seem to be born, come down with disease, sustain injuries, or even die than if the weather had remained normal. These reports are intriguing, and because they prove that our forebears were not so far off in placing their faith in the winds, rains, and small native animals who could warn them about what to expect. Crazy, thinking that my heart could load you. Alright, the Lubbocksville Weather Prophets assemble. I must begin by admitting that I am not quite certain whether the old North American newspaper aimed to pull its readers' legs a little bit when it reported on this scientific conclave at the Lubbocksville in 1912. The newspaper made its annual report of the Congress of Weathermen each year, claiming that they met in a seminar in Lubbocksville where these men discussed the prospects of the season ahead. Whatever the North American intended, the records indicate that some serious discussions took place in the old general store of William Hessig on the subject of the weather. Public records verify that the following men, named by the newspaper, could well have driven to Lubbocksville, each in his own carriage, remained overnight at the hotel run by Zacharias Miller, and in the morning stepped over to Hessig's store at Lubbocksville to hold their session. Leaving aside questions of accuracy or sincerity, in September 1912, the North Americans avowed that these men conducted themselves in the following manner. The weather prophets of Berks County, who have forecast the weather for many years here, held their annual convention at the Lubbocksville, and by a 2/3 vote it was agreed that the coming winter will be unusually severe. Weather prognosticators from all sections about Lubbocksville were represented at the meeting and exchanged their views on the subject. Many are closed followers of the goosebone weather. Prophet Eliza Hertz, those in attendance did not hesitate to express their views. Some are guided in their theories by the actions of small animals and reptiles. Others pay close attention to the trees and shrubbery. Below are some more of the interesting examples of the weather folklore recorded, and based on their folk beliefs about weather and observations, predictions formulated by these goosebone prophets. Henry Whalers said, "Farmers are preparing for a hard and long winter because the red squirrels and chipmunks have become very busy digging deep into the ground and preparing their nests for storage of food." H. Brown said, "My great-grandmother used to say that when there was a good crop of persimmons that times would provide themselves with a good supply of buffalo meat, for they were sure of a long and severe winter. The persimmon crop is a prolific one this year, and we can look for a hard winter." Oh, my eyes. I got an hour left, y'all. I gotta drive 45 minutes. Cyrus E. Hessing said, I am unable to make a prediction until after November 23rd or 24th. If on the former day it is blustery and cloudy, then January and February and March will be severe months. If it is clear on November 23rd, the weather will be mild. If it is blustery on November 24th, the winter will extend into April and May. Cyrus Delp said, a dry summer is invariably followed by a winter with lots of snow. This year the rainfall exceeded the average, and I predict there will be but little snow and that winter will be mild. A wet fall means an early winter. Jackson Pegger said, 50 years ago, Ember Day, weather was very closely watched by every household in Berks, and even to this day, there are many persons who have faith in this old-time prophecy. The belief that if it rains on Ember Day, there will be a great deal of rain in October. If, on the contrary, the weather is fair, the outlook for October will be fair, with hardly any rain, and a cold winter will follow. John Fritz, based on his predictions, he followed the planets, claiming that the coming winter would be a mild one. He was recorded as standing in front of the window and looking out toward the old chair factory while tugging on his beard, saying, from September 29th to October 10th, as we approach the full moon, we will again be approached by a warm spell. As Jupiter is predominant for 3 years, the weather will accordingly be warm. Next summer will be featured by a drought and intense heat. Jupiter embraces an area of 1,000 miles, which territory is affected as the planet moves. I am not positive of the accuracy of these prophecies, but I am willing to venture the guess that they were more accurate than not. Bill Becker, who was the longtime owner of the general store, allowed very few modern changes to enter into the scene up to recent times, so that this great store remained a delightful gathering place for many years. If Bill had only possessed a good tape recording of those old seminars, they took place around the turn of the century, he could have forgotten all about merchandising and sat back on the porch and just listened to his audience comment upon his great Pennsylvania Dutch folk life show. I must get a drink. I will be right back. tired. I'm not tired at all. Goes by so slowly, and time can do so much. Why are we getting hot again? Guys, the heat is not necessary. Alright, where was I? Why are we so hot? Am I just reading y'all bedtime stories? You got any actual fucking questions? I got one more. No, I got about 45 minutes to kill yet. Now I gotta go. I gotta drive to Hattiesburg. Apparently, the entire back of this book. That turtle. Apparently, the entire back of this book is like an interview, back and forth with the author and somebody else. I do have something flagged back here, though. Let me see what it is. What is flagged? Pennsylvania German folk tales and legends, once upon a time stories, maxims, and sayings. Spoken in the dialect popularly known as Pennsylvania Dutch. These look alright. That's probably why I tagged it. Alright, casting the magic bullet. As late as 40 years ago, one heard, not infrequently, stories of a magic bullet by which one could kill another at any distance. Today's stories are remembered by only a few persons. One Christmas Eve at midnight, some men went to a crossroad to mold magic bullets for the purpose of shooting thieves. The magic bullet, if shot into the air, will hit the person for whom it is intended, no matter where they are or whom they may be. Of course, the shooter has to have some definite person in mind when they fire in the direction of the house of the suspected person. Well, these men were at the crossroad. As they were molding the first bullet, they heard a rumbling overhead. They looked up and saw a millstone slowly revolving not far above their heads. One of them backed away, but the millstone moved with him. Then he ran, but whatever he took up, there was the millstone just above his head. After running a quarter mile, he was exhausted and lay down, and the millstone disappeared. After a little while, he plucked up the courage and went back to the crossroad. All his companions had disappeared, but the devil was there. Boldly he addressed the devil. "What is the meaning of all this?" "The meaning," answered the devil, "if you don't get away from here as fast as you can, I'll show you the meaning." And the man took to his heels. The treasure is hidden under an agreement with the devil. A man buried gold beneath the threshold of his floor under an agreement with the devil that after his death, that after his of death, the money could only be gotten with the help of 7 brothers. A tramp, lying among the hay, overheard the conversation and also saw where the treasure was hidden. The farmer died. Several years passed, and the tramp on his roads again came that way. He asked for food, and it was given to him. While eating, he inquired whether they had found the money which the dead farmer had hidden. They answered that they knew he had hidden money, and that they had searched long and in vain for it. "I know where the money is hidden," said the tramp, "but it can only be gotten with the help of 7 brothers. They overcame what apparently was a great difficulty by taking 7 suckling pigs to the threshing of the floor, and when they raised the planks, the treasure was there." Plant legends. The number of plant legends among our people is comparatively small when we bear in mind the large number of plants, native and introduced, which are commonly known throughout our region and which have distinctive names. Most of the legends are of European origin. So there's Devil's Bit, our dialect name, Dewelsababwazzle, the root bitten by the devil. The short, thick, and abrupt rootstock is highly regarded for its medical qualities. The legend tells how the devil became disturbed when he found the number of persons dying was rapidly decreasing, so he started off on a tour of an investigation. He discovered that a certain root was being used, which had great curative powers, so great as to counteract all the ills which he could send upon the people. He became so enraged that he tried to destroy the root, but he was powerless to destroy what God had created, and so he had to be content with biting off the greater part of it. That is the reason for the short, abrupt roots. Skunk cabbage. When the first German people settled in the country, their attention was drawn to the large clusters of skunk cabbage leaves, which appeared in swampy places in early spring. They decided that this must be the way cabbage grows in America. So they gathered the leaves, cooked them, and ate them. For this reason, skunk cabbage was called Swabian cabbage. Okay. white hellebore, Veratrum viridad, is also known in the dialect as Schwowow grout. But here we call it Schwowo, which means cockroach. We got one called swamp pink. Our legends have to do with the reason for the dialectal name, which translated means the herb worth 1,000 guldens. A colonel of a regiment offered to make any one of his soldiers wealthy for life who would bring him an unfailing cure for the ills of the body. One of the soldiers stepped out of the ranks, went into the woods near the camp, and brought back the swamp pink. He received 1,000 gulden from the colonel as a reward. Oh, that's why it's called 1,000 gulden. Okay. In the course of time, guild lost its true meaning and became associated with the dialect verb geld, meaning to be useful, and the name was regarded as meaning the herb useful for 1,000 ills. There was a man who was being hung. On the way to the scaffold, he told his executioners that if they would let him go free, he would show them an herb that would cure all ills. Oh. After some discussion, they agreed to his request and directed him to bring the plant to them. Accompanied by a guard, he went into the nearby woods and brought out the swamp pink. About 15 minutes, so I gotta get dressed and get out of here. Alright, for the Germanic tribes, the byfoot was probably considered the most powerful of all plants. Mugrowort, meaning power root. They called them muggert, muggerk, and mugwort. It is still called in the Low German dialects. Its English name is mugwort, although some linguistic researchers also assume that mug is derived from the Celtic meagle, meaning warmen. It doesn't mean anything else, because in pictorial thinking, warmth is equal to life and strength, whereas cold is equal to death. And we have lousewort. This plant is known to us by the names of Witterkum, which means come again plant. Its virtues are said to have been discovered in this wise one. One day a tramp came to a farmhouse and begged for food. He took the platter and the cup of coffee and sat down on the steps of the porch to eat. It was given to him with a cup of coffee. The man of the house had been an invalid for a long time, and he had recovered from his illness, but had been unable to recover his strength. As the tramp ate the meal, he talked with the sick man, who was sitting on the porch in a rocking chair. When he had finished his meal, he said, "You have been good to me, and now I shall bring you a plant that will restore your strength." He went into the meadow and brought back the lousewort. "This," he said, "is the come again plant. Use it and it will bring back your health and strength." I don't think I've ever heard of lousewort. The plants with the blood spots. When Christ was crucified, drops of his blood fell down upon a plant that stood at the foot of the cross. Ever since, the leaves of that plant are marked with blood spots. This legend is heard of different plants. The spotted knotweed, Polygonum perscaria, whose leaves are usually marked with a dark lunate or triangular spot near the middle. Also, the mildew, whose leaves are sometimes spotted dark purple. It is called Himmelsgrant, the herb of heaven. And St. John's wort, one of our dialect names for this plant is Gottsblut, God's blood. This crushed plant yields a reddish juice, and all these plants have been naturalized from Europe. And we have a lost plant. It's just called the lost plant. One evening, a man went across his field to visit a neighbor. Returning home late at night, he crossed a fence and then stumbled and fell. When he arose, he didn't know where he was and walked on and on around the field until 4 o'clock in the morning. When daylight began to appear in the east, then he realized his surroundings. There were those who said that he had stepped on the witless herb. Others, however, thought that he had been misled by a ghost. This mysterious plant has a number of dialect names. Verlermigrot, lose thyself herb. Ergrot, lose the way herb. Viragrot, the confusion herb. It has been identified as the rattlesnake plantain, whose dark leaves with white nerves and many fine reticulating veins, so unlike other plants, makes the impression of mystery upon such as come upon it in the woodlands. It's a good song. I traveled every road in this her land. I've been everywhere, man. I've been everywhere, man. I've been everywhere. Pimpernel. Pimpernel. According to our legend, its medical properties were revealed from heaven. During a time of pestilence, when people died like flies, when all remedies were futile, a voice was heard from the sky saying, "Drink the tea of pimpernel, and ye shall get well." Anybody want to say anything? I got about 15 minutes. I'm going to get off here. I got to get dressed and drive to fucking Hattiesburg. Did I read y'all to sleep? Now I'm gonna get the hiccups. Well, at least y'all waited till I was done reading. Have y'all seen my hex jewelry? I got a bunch of different, I've got charm bracelets, earrings, rings, and you can buy single hex charms as well. These are vintage Hoffman enameled hex cuts that I put into charm pieces of jewelry and stuff. They're new old stock, so when they're gone, they're gone. The hex jewelry will be gone when it's gone. Oh, now they're just gonna fall all over the place. Anybody? Damn. I stay up late, but I usually don't stay up this quite late. This is usually about the time I'm heading to bed, and I can't. But at least y'all have cooled down for me. Thank you. I appreciate it. I think somebody came in here that shouldn't have been in here. My people got hot as fuck. They usually do that when they're trying to protect me from something. Or get my attention about something. Or when they get riled up. Anybody have any questions or anything before I get off of here? I gotta drive to Hattiesburg with one fucking headlight. I never drive at night. Like, keep from it as much as I can. So I don't know. But after dropping shit off tonight and driving home, I realized I have one fucking headlight and I have to go back with one fucking headlight. I can't take the truck because I filled my car gas tank up. I don't want to put gas in the truck too. And hopefully I don't get pulled the fuck over. I need to do some prayers before I walk out this door and I'm gonna get pulled fucking over. They're not too strict on that though, because we don't even have car inspections or anything here. So, I mean, if they want to be an asshole, like I'm sure, you know, if they really wanted to pull me over, that'd be a reason to do it. But usually they let that shit slide because we don't even have inspections. There's cars driving around here with half the fucking front missing, like literally just the engine sitting in the frame. They driving around. God, I love Mississippi, fuck. Anybody? I'm about to lose my voice. Been reading all fucking night to y'all. Shit. Bedtime stories. Fuck. Did y'all go to sleep on me? I can't go to sleep. But you got about at 3:45. I'm gonna get off of here because I gotta get dressed and drive 45 fucking minutes with one headlight. Tired as fuck. Now I gotta come back and try and get a couple hours of sleep before I gotta drive another hour to fucking McGee to the New Earth Energy Shop because today's my day to do fucking readings and set up my product case and everything in her store. So hopefully I can get a couple hours of sleep before I gotta head out. I gotta be there at 1. Which means I gotta get, leave by noon, which means I gotta get up at 11. I think I'm neurodivergent a little bit. My brain works so weird. Especially when it comes to times and appointments and things. I gotta get up at 11. So I have an hour to get ready before I have to leave at noon to drive an hour to get there on time. Fuck. But I tell you, I'm really good and I am rarely ever fucking late. In fact, earlier today, when I had to drive to Hattiesburg the first time, we were heading out to leave, and we didn't have to be there till like 7. And I'm like, we gotta leave at 4:30. And he's like, why the fuck are we leaving at 4:30 when we gotta be there at 7? I was like, well, there's construction, and we got 5 o'clock traffic. So we're gonna get stuck in that for probably at least a half hour. And then we're gonna get to Hattiesburg probably about 5:15. And then we're going to eat, and that'll give us about an hour. About an hour to eat. And then another half hour to get you to the spot. And we'll get there about about like 10 minutes before you're supposed to be there. You'll be right on time. And I'll be damned if I didn't get off the exit to Hattiesburg at 5:15 at the exact fucking time I said it was going to take. Why y'all getting hot again? Why are we getting hot again, guys? We got 4 minutes. If anybody has any questions, you better ask them. I close my eyes, I'm seeing that goddamn ring light. Like everywhere. With my eyes closed. I'm gonna be seeing that shit driving down the highway. I'm gonna see ring lights everywhere. Fuck. So let me turn that down a little bit now. Oh, that's a little better. Can you guys even hear the music, or do I look like I'm crazy? I get stupid when I'm tired, by the way. The tireder and later it gets, the stupider I will get. Who the fuck is this? Why does it sound like Buddy Holly? Wrong pen. It is Buddy Holly. I think it's a Buddy Holly song I have never heard before. Brown-eyed handsome man. Never heard this song. I'm getting real fed up with this app shadow banning me, I'm gonna tell you what. When I first came on this app, any fucking content I uploaded, like minimum 700-800 fucking views. Usually a couple thousand. Some of them have 1 million or more. I used to get a lot of people on my lives. Now when I upload a video, I'm lucky if I get 200 views over like 4 days. And I hardly get anybody on my fucking lives. I have damn near 60,000 fucking followers on this app. And I'm lucky if I can get 3 or 4 people on a fucking live. I don't know why they're doing it to me. Why are they doing it to me? Why are they doing it to me? How do I undo it? This shit is stupid. Fucking stupid. Alright, y'all. It is 3:45. Wait. I gotta wait till this song's over. Oh, the other way. Because a vision softly creeping left its seeds while I was sleeping, and the vision that was planted in my brain
streams I walked alone, narrow streets of cobblestone, neath the halo of a street lamp, I turned my collar to the cold and damp. When my eyes were stabbed by the flash of a neon light that split the night and touched the sound of silence, and in the naked light I saw 10,000 people, maybe more, people talking without speaking, people hearing without listening, people writing songs that voices never shared. No one dared disturb the sound of silence. Folks that I do not know, silence like a cancer grows. Hear my words that I might teach you, take my arms that I might reach you, but my words like silent raindrops fell, and echoed the wills of silence, and the people bowed away to the neon god they made, and the sign flashed out its warning in the words that it was forming, and the sign said the words of the prophets are written on the subway walls, tenement halls, whispered the sound of silence.
That's a perfect song to go out to. Alright. I'm outie.
Put your head on my shoulder, hold me in your arms, baby, squeeze me oh so tight, show me.
Okay. I'm outie. I gotta get dressed and drive to fucking Hattiesburg. Alright, well I hope I put everybody to sleep because nobody fucking said anything. May all your ancestors have all the necessary light and elevation that they need to properly guide you on your path. I will see you in the future. Good night. End. Well, thank you.